All right, we've got our first major news of this 49ers offseason. According to ESPN's Nick Wagoner, the 49ers have fired special teams coordinator Brian Schneider. The move does not come as a surprise because the 49ers were the worst special teams unit in the NFL, according to expected points added per play, which tallies up all the punt returns, the punt coverage, the kick returns, the kick coverage, and the field goals. Obviously, Jake Moody was very bad down the stretch as the 49ers kicker, made just 55% of his field goals following the high ankle sprain. But the 49ers also struggled in other facets of special teams. That's how they ended up ranked last, including punt coverage. Fake punts got the 49ers twice on the season, possibly the biggest indictment of Brian Schneider. Interestingly, if you look at defense adjusted value of average, DVOA, the 49ers actually didn't rank dead last. They ranked second to last, number 31. Only the Tennessee Titans, who were just abominable on special teams, were worse. But it was trending in a downward direction under Brian Schneider. He took over in 2022 because remember in 2021, Richard Hightower, who was the 49ers special teams coordinator, former college teammate of Kyle Shanahan's at Texas, that unit was really bad under Hightower in 2021. So his contract was not renewed after the 49ers slipped to number 26 in special teams DVOA. They signed Brian Schneider at that point, and he immediately helped improve the 49ers special teams to number 15. They made a couple signings also before that 2022 season of pure specialists. Somebody like George Odom, pure specialist for the 49ers, helped improve that unit to number 15. But they started slipping again last year. Remember that in the Super Bowl, special teams cost the 49ers. Darrell Luter Jr. had a punt nick off his leg, and that ended up being a muffed punt for the 49ers that gave Kansas City some life that they desperately needed. San Francisco dropped to number 25 in special teams DVOA, down to number 31 this season, and then they were number 32, dead last in EPA per play. The 49ers lost nearly 60 expected points on special teams this year. It was literally the difference between a negative point differential and a positive point differential. The 49ers, I mean, they had the best spot on the XY chart that we look at, expected points added per play, of any team in the NFC West. But the catch with that chart is that it does not include special teams. Take a look at this right here. This is how much special teams cost the 49ers this season. X-axis is offense EPA per play. Y-axis is defense EPA per play. So you want to be further up and further to the right, team tier-wise. Well, look where the 49ers are. Exactly where the Arizona Cardinals were, a little bit ahead of where the Rams were and ahead of where the Seahawks were. So the 49ers, you could just easily deduce from this that if the special teams had just been competent, not the very worst in the league, would have been the most efficient team in their division. Instead, they finished dead last in their division. Anyway, let's talk about what the 49ers might do moving forward. First off, Schneider was instrumental in the 49ers drafting struggling kicker Jake Moody. That was a third-round pick ahead of the 2023 season. Schneider's the one that ran Moody through the workout. It was a high-stress workout. They tried to, I think they sprayed water on the football. Then they did a lot of fire alarms during the workout. They said, hey, right now you got to run, sprint out onto the field, kick a 50-yard field goal. Then they try to simulate wind. They try to simulate the stress of actual game kicking situations to see if Jake Moody would be up to the challenge of kicking under the high stress of the NFL. And supposedly Jake Moody passed that test with flying colors. Now, it is worth noting that Jake Moody made 84% of his kicks his rookie year. Was a solid clip for a rookie. Then he turned around and he was making 93% of his kicks before the high ankle sprain this season. So there's a school of thought, and I don't think that it would be incorrect, that says that Brian Schneider went down with Jake Moody. Moody, again, missed 9 field goals down the stretch run after the high ankle sprain, after he returned during that game against Tampa Bay. And that probably hurt the 49ers special teams EPA and DVOA numbers the most. They were definitely the most visible parts of the 49ers special team struggles. But again, this is a team that struggled outside of the field goals. This is a team that saw its kick coverage struggle, its punt coverage struggle. I mean, the reason that Jake Moody got hurt in the first place was because the kick coverage wasn't good. He had to try to make a tackle against DJ Dallas of the Arizona Cardinals in week 5, and that's where Moody suffered the high ankle sprain, and it was a high ankle sprain that was particularly damaging to the 49ers because it sent Jake Moody to the bench. That is where he was during the game where the 49ers lost 24-23 to the Cardinals. They didn't have a backup kicker. They lost by a point in large part because they didn't have a backup kicker. And then when Moody returned, well, he's been a much worse kicker since then than before. Anyway, the 49ers do need to find a way to get this special teams coaching or coordinating position into a decent spot. Again, I go back to this. It has slid in every single season under Brian Schneider. 2022 was better than the final year of Richard Hightower, but in general, the 49ers special teams just has not been above average under Kyle Shanahan. And I think this is a reflection of a lack of organizational focus on special teams. You hear Kyle Shanahan talk about it a lot. He just doesn't want special teams to screw it up. It's not like a Bill Belichick or a Pete Carroll thing. If you listen to Bill Belichick talk, you could search it right now. There's a video where a reporter asks him about the importance of carrying long snappers on the 53-man roster. And Belichick delves into a 10-minute answer on the history of long snapping in the NFL. It's like this master class on long snapping. You can just tell that Belichick is, or was, where he is, he's the coach now of North Carolina. So now he's obsessed with special teams. He was obsessed with it when he was the coach of the Patriots. He's going to bring that obsession with him to the University of North Carolina. Some coaches are obsessed with special teams, and I think the results usually follow because there's a top-down effect. The head coach cares a lot. The head coach, subconsciously, players are going to follow suit. If players know that the coach is obsessed with the art of long snapping, well, I think that subconsciously you're going to have the team making sure that the details of special teams are well adhered to, but also personnel-wise, the special teams is probably going to get a little bit more attention than it does on a team like the 49ers, where the focus has decidedly been on offense and defense, and Kyle Shanahan just hasn't wanted special teams to screw things up. I think that starts to explain why somebody like Brian Schneider was actually very successful prior to his time with the 49ers. From 2010 to 2020, he was the coordinator of the Seahawks, and their special teams finished in the top 5 multiple times. There was more of an organizational emphasis on special teams. Meanwhile, the 49ers have seen slides down to number 26 for Richard Hightower's special teams unit in 2021. And despite an improvement at the start from Brian Schneider, a slide down to the bottom of the league this season. I do urge people to look at this in the big picture, though, and say, hey, the 49ers probably need a bigger organizational rewiring. Kyle Shanahan needs to start taking special teams more seriously so this does not continue screwing up games for the 49ers. This season alone, it cost the 49ers at least a couple games, probably even more. Again, it was literally the difference in point differential between the 49ers being a losing point differential team, negative point differential, and a positive winning point differential team. And when we look at the data and we see how the offense and the defense performed, and we see that they were essentially in the best spot out of any NFC West team, it is fair to conclude that better special teams might have won the 49ers the division, which is why they made this move. So who's a potential candidate? One name that I could think of right now is Darren Rizzi. He's the interim head coach right now of the New Orleans Saints, who are going to be looking for a new coaching staff. But the former special teams coordinator of the New Orleans Saints, who has coordinated top 5 special teams units before. He's somebody that's a name brand that would be available on the market for the 49ers, presumably after this season, assuming that he's not hired to be the full-time coach of the New Orleans Saints, who San Francisco can bring in for an immediate upgrade. Matt Barrows, my former coworker at The Athletic, got to give him credit for this thought. He's pointed out that Nick Sorensen has been a special teams coordinator before. He actually relieved Brian Schneider in 2021 for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Sorensen's the 49ers defensive coordinator We're not sure about the future of Nick Sorensen in his spot yet because the 49ers defense also took a tumble. But is it possible that the 49ers, who really like Nick Sorensen on the staff, he was the ball father, the director of those ball meetings before that helped the 49ers to the top turnover margin in the league in 2022 and 2023. Is it possible that he's moved to the now vacant special teams coordinator spot with Brian Schneider fired, with the 49ers hiring a new defensive coordinator? That's Matt Barrow's idea, and we'll see if the 49ers follow through on it. But I'll list Sorensen and I'll list Darren Rizzi as two names that I would not be shocked to see as the 49ers special teams coordinator. This is absolutely a position that the 49ers need to take seriously. And I think they took it seriously after 2021, after the slide to number 26 under Richard Hightower. Well, now they have to make sure that that slide, the second slide that they've seen, the slide under Brian Schneider, is reversed. So special teams does not continue costing this team games. It was the second fake punt that worked. There was one that worked against Brian Schneider and the 49ers in week 3 of 2024. And then there was one that worked. That was the Rams. Then there was one that worked in week 18, the Cardinals against the 49ers. And that is unacceptable. The 49ers cannot have fake punts working against them. That is schematic preparation. Even if you don't have the best special teams players, you need to make sure that you're coaching them up to be aware so that kind of stuff doesn't happen. But I think that the most visible damage on the stat sheet was done with Jake Moody's struggles. And I do wonder, will a new special teams coordinator want to bring in his own kicker? Is he going to demand to want to bring in his own kicker? If it's somebody from in-house, well, the kicker's already there, and that's Jake Moody. But I have advocated that the 49ers should, at the very least, bring in competition for Jake Moody. He obviously hasn't been the same kicker since he sprained the ankle against the Arizona Cardinals. Again, only 11 of 20 after starting the season, 13 of 14. So even if it's not a physical issue anymore for Jake Moody, even if he has returned to 100% full strength following the high ankle sprain, there's obviously a mental issue going on now. There's obviously something psychological going on now that has been a product of the high ankle sprain. And if that's the case, well, it's a scary situation for your kicker in the NFL because you don't know if and when he's going to snap out of it. But you also don't want to necessarily cut him because he's a talented guy who could sign on with another team, regain his stride, and then make your decision to cut him not look very good. So I do think that signing kicker depth and kicker competition for Jake Moody over the course of this offseason is the logical step forward for the 49ers, but we will see if their new special teams coordinator agrees. Again, Darren Rizzi is somebody that I would look at if you're looking for names. The interim coach of the Saints, who has guided the New Orleans Saints to a top 5 special teams unit in the past. And, well, if we're going to listen to Matt Barrows, maybe Nick Sorensen is a name to watch as well. But the 49ers have fired Brian Schneider. This is according to Nick Wagoner of ESPN. Does a great job. Make sure you follow Nick on Twitter at @NWagoner. Breaks the news this evening that the 49ers have made their first major move of the 2025 offseason. All right, everybody, thanks for watching. We'll talk to you soon.